The Scuba Diver Magazine podcast is sponsored by Scubapro, who are celebrating their 60th year of being an iconic scuba brand, and Scubapro has a few offers that I'm going to break down later on in this podcast. Hi, all of you wonderful scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine podcast. The big news this week is AquaLung. They're in a spot of bother, shall we say, and a press release has confirmed that an investment management group is in discussions to acquire AquaLung. The clock's been ticking for the owners of AquaLung for a while now, and all of the rumours and questions from the past couple of years are being answered. A Australian diving company has been fined $735 dues for repeatedly putting its employees at risk, and Russia is reinforcing its waters with anti-diver dolphin squads. So let's dive straight into the first news story, which I had to have a bit of a crash course in corporate takeovers and leveraging finance and stuff, because yes, there was a press release that we received a few days ago now, and it's from AquaLung and the Bearings Group, and I'm just going to read part of it, saying Bearings, one of the world's leading investment managers, has entered into exclusive discussions to acquire 100% of the AquaLung Group, a global leader in manufacturing equipment for diving and high-performance water sports. All key stakeholders, including Bearings as shareholder, as well as the lenders of the AquaLung Group, have officially endorsed a binding agreement that outlines this significant capital evolution. So this is quite a long and drawn out story. It's been evolving for Struth a good few years now, and it's kind of best if we roll the clocks back. I've had a quick look through the history, and I think I've pulled out the key years and things that have happened that led up to this point. So AquaLung, as we all knew it, was owned or was created by Jacques Cousteau back in the day, and he created a company called Air Liquide, and Air Liquide sold AquaLung to the Montague private equity firm in 2016. And from what I gather, this was in an attempt to raise capital so that they could buy was it Air Gas, which was a US company, and Montague private equity firm use leveraged finance to make money. So they buy these companies, and their plan is to basically turn and burn, as it were. So they strip away as much of the fat as possible. The fat, unfortunately, being people, just staff members who are just not essential. So they fire all of them. They sell what they can. They try and make the company look as profitable and good as possible, so that in about 5 or 6 years' time, they can turn a profit by selling this company. And because they use leveraging or leveraged finance, what they basically do is they put down about 5% of the money that they're buying the company for. They finance the 95% of the money, and then they hope to sell it for 200%, ideally, or even higher numbers. They basically expect it to increase in value, and then that way they make a whole load of extra with only putting in 5% in. Now, the problem is that from 2016, if you roll the clocks forward 6 years, you get yourself to 2021. Now, a little thing happened in 2019, 2020. You may have heard of it. It's called the COVID pandemic, and not a lot of people were buying scuba diving equipment around 2020. So the problem is that they've stripped away a lot of the staff and on all the sort of excess bits, people weren't buying diving equipment, so just they were getting into larger and larger amounts of debt, and it actually got to the point where in 2020 they received a 17.5 million euro emergency loan, and all covenants related to AquaLung's debts were waived until September 2022. Then roll on 2021, they're still not making any profits. They're now in severe debt, and a lot of these numbers are according to a medium.com report, which breaks it all down beautifully. They were effectively 13.6 times their EBITDA, which is their earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. I'm not a financial wizard. I don't know what this word means. But it was like 13.6 times the 7.4 million euros. And normally, like 3 or 4 times is like a red flag to financial institutions. And then, of course, interest rates start to increase. So it's a really, really bad position, or it was a really bad position, and it kind of still was. Whereas other companies such as Scubapro or Mares had very little, if any. I think I read somewhere that that Johnson Outdoors, who owned Scubapro during the pandemic, and maybe even now, I forget the exact figure, I don't think they had any debt. So they were. It was very easy for them to like ride out the storm. So Scubapro and Mares, both of which are just capitalizing on AquaLung's weakness, are growing in market shares, whereas AquaLung are just struggling and just getting into more and more debt. In 2022, a French court ordered AquaLung to basically organize and restructure its debts. It gave it 4 months, and we're now, that was in June 2022. We're now in June 2023, and it still hasn't really been organized. So Montague was forced to put 15 million euros into AquaLung, whilst another lender provided an additional 18 million. And now in 2023, Barings has put forward a proposition to take control of AquaLung. Barings is an investment management firm owned by Massachusetts Mutual Life Insurance Company. It operates under Mass Mutual Financial Group. Therefore, the French company AquaLung will now be American owned. However, we shouldn't expect this ownership situation to remain for very long, because Barings' interest in AquaLung is, of course, strictly financial. They want to recuperate the money that it loans to AquaLung, so we're probably going to see Barings flip AquaLung at their first opportunity, which is exactly what these types of investors do. The deal is due to close in autumn this year, and then Barings will own AquaLung completely. So 2024 AquaLung is going to be quite interesting to keep an eye on. And yeah, this kind of explains a lot of the supply chain issues. People have had issues trying to get hold of replacement parts for AquaLung and Apeks regulators and things. We've kind of seen it behind the scenes. You see the little red flags here and there. We actually asked AquaLung a few months ago now. There was a whiff of this kind of news, and we just kind of asked them for a statement, and they categorically said, no, everything's fine. We just had a major cash injection, so yeah, everything is fine. But apparently not. So yeah, going forwards, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It's good to see the comparison with like Scubapro, who are doing amazingly well. Compared to a lot of the other manufacturers. They've really ridden the wave, and they're profiting and doing great things. But yeah, AquaLung is going to be interesting to see what happens in the next few years, because yeah, AquaLung were one of the original brands, and Apeks is a huge brand out there, but they're just kind of stuck at the moment. And the next year or so is going to be very interesting to see what happens with AquaLung. So, as I mentioned at the start, this podcast is sponsored by the scuba diving giant Scubapro, who have been making great scuba diving equipment since 1963. And Scubapro makes everything from masks and snorkels and fins to wetsuits, dry suits, dive computers. They have a beautiful range of regulators as well, and they have a great range of products that scuba divers love because if you take their fins, for example, they still make their jet fins, which are a design from the 1960s, but divers still love them because they simply got it right the first time. The only upgrade that the jet fins have ever had over the years is to add spring heel straps. And Scubapro also makes some of the most cutting-edge fins today, from their Sea Wing Nova and Supernova fins. So Scubapro covers the entire range of diving equipment, from their heritage equipment to modern technology. And right now, Scubapro has a pair of offers at participating dealers. The first one is a free Octo offer. If you buy a Scubapro S620 Ti or the D420 with either a Mark 19 Evo or the Mark 25 Evo first stage, you're going to get yourself a S270 Octo for free, which is a great way to start building a regulator set and start saving yourself some money. The D420 may look a little bit different to some other second stages, but it breathes beautifully. The S620 is a combination of the best features of other Scubapro second stages in a great all-rounder of a second stage. The free Octo offer also extends to their S600 with a Mark 25 or a Mark 17 Evo first stage, which is one of their most popular regulators. Again, a very strong all-rounder. That and the G260 or the new G260 Carbon Black Tech with either a Mark 25 or a Mark 19 Evo first stage, you'll get yourself a free R105 Octo. Now, I know that was a lot of numbers that I just threw at you, but if you visit your local Scubapro dealer, there's a dealer locator on the Scubapro website where you can find your nearest and they can help you find the right regulator for you. The second offer is a dry suit promotion, which is a great way to save some money again, or get a fancier dry suit combination in your budget. If you buy a neoprene Everdry 4 or an Exo dry suit, you can get a free K2 light undersuit set or a K2 medium thickness undersuit for £99, which has a suggested retail price of £298, so you're saving yourself some money. Or if you prefer a trilaminate dry suit, if you buy the Evertech breathable or the definition dry, you will get the K2 extreme undersuit for free, which is a great way to stay warmer in the water. Personally, I tend to wear my dry suit year-round here in the UK, so a dry suit is a great investment. Both of these offers are running until the end of July in certain regions and participating dealers, so do ask them first before you turn up demanding for free Scubapro equipment. The next news story is an Australian diving company has been fined $730,000, which is around £382,000, for repeatedly putting its employees at risk. So, Underwater Inspection Services of Doveton, which conducts water, cylinder and irrigation system inspections and repairs, pleaded guilty in the Court of Victoria in Melbourne to what were described as a string of life-threatening health and safety offences. 7 charges have been brought under the Occupational Health and Safety Act based on 5 jobs the company had carried out between May and August 2018. In one case, a female diver on an umbilical line became stuck after crawling into a 1 metre wide, 3.5 metre long irrigation culvert, reported Health and Safety Agency WorkSafe Victoria. Her umbilical snagged outside the culvert, leaving her unable to do more than lie in murky water with rats swimming around her. There was no response to the calls for help she made using the communication system, but after 15 minutes, she succeeded in maneuvering herself backwards to escape. WorkSafe's investigation found that the woman's backup diver had not been adequately trained to effect a rescue and was unfamiliar with the ill-fitting dry suit, mask, and surface-supplied breathing apparatus supplied. Just terrifying, terrifying. After employees had tried telling their director that they were uncomfortable with certain tasks they were given, in August, two of them decided that they would call WorkSafe. The agency says that during its investigation, UIS told its workers to lie about their levels of experience and training. That's always a good sign, isn't it? What could possibly go wrong? WorkSafe Executive Director of Health and Safety, Dr. Narelle Beer, told the court diving is inherently hazardous with deadly risks such as asphyxiation and drowning, making such a cavalier approach to safety especially egregious. WorkSafe won't hesitate to prosecute any duty holder who displays such blatant disregard for their workers' safety. According to a report on the court proceedings by ABC, Judge Michael O'Connell said that one employee had regularly noticed problems with ill-fitting diving suits, helmets, gloves, and masks whilst working at UIS. When the worker had asked company owner Kent Bedford why UIS employed unqualified divers, he was told that the laws in Victoria are grey and do not stipulate that divers must be commercial divers. But Judge O'Connell said that there was evidence that Bedford and by extension UIS were aware of the risks and dangers associated with commercial diving and the need for appropriate control measures. Explaining that the substantial fine imposed was intended to flag up the risk of exposing staff to workplace dangers, the judge fined UIS $600,000 for recklessly engaging in conduct that placed workers in danger of serious injury or drowning, $70,000 for failing to provide necessary training for workers to perform their tasks safely, and $60,000 for failing to provide safe systems of work. So, yeah, it's a lot cheaper just to hire the correctly qualified divers and provide them with the correct equipment, then get caught and have to pay all of these court fines. And if you are looking for work either as a basically as a diving professional, you have the right to double check that your employer has all the right accreditations, they're using the right equipment, and if something's a little bit off for you, then it is definitely worth saying something. And if your employer tells you to lie about your qualifications, it's best to avoid them. Concerned about the threat from Ukrainian scuba diving saboteurs at the Black Sea Fleet's main base in Sevastopol Harbor, Russia is apparently stepping up security by reinforcing the number of dolphin guards trained to detect and counter any underwater incursions. So, according to an update issued on the 23rd of June by the UK's Defence Intelligence Agency, the Russian Navy has invested in major enhancements to its security of its Black Sea base in occupied Crimea since summer of 2022. But in recent weeks, it has ramped up its precautions in the face of Ukraine's looming counter-offensive. The agency has aerial photographs of the base that indicate a near doubling of floating mammal pens considered highly likely to contain trained bottlenose dolphins. The enhanced defences also include at least 4 layers of nets and booms across the harbour entrance. In Arctic waters, the Russian Navy is also known to use beluga whales and seals for military purposes. It trains marine mammals for a range of missions besides countering enemy divers. Ukraine's counter-offensive has already targeted infrastructure near Crimea in pursuit of its objective of returning all Russian-occupied land to its control. The Black Sea Fleet would be a primary target for Ukrainian special forces or drone assaults. So, they're basically putting in these dolphins to, alert and counter underwater divers. So hopefully none of these dolphins are retired and then released into the wild, or find their way out into the wild, and then some of their training, whatever they're trained to do, just suddenly comes back to them the next time they see a recreational scuba diver. The US has always denied training dolphins to kill, and but they basically say that dolphin soldiers are too unreliable. However, there was a naval historian of King's College London who basically said because dolphins are so well adapted to hunting underwater, they would be just ideal for killing human divers because they're fast, clever, and powerful. And yeah, in poor visibility or at night, any diver in the harbour would be a target. Yeah, hopefully, yeah, none of these dolphins find their way out. The diving training agency SSI has just released a new challenge, and there are some prizes up for grabs. So this is the SSI Dive Log Challenge, and it's taking place from July 1st to September 30th, 2023. And you basically have to download their app, which you can log dives on, and each verified dive log within this time period will count as an entry into the challenge. Every month, they will randomly select one lucky winner from their vibrant community of participants to win a brand new Mares Sirius dive computer. We will also give away 3 Mares Chroma Up Mask consolation prizes to 3 randomly chosen winners each month. At the end of the dive log challenge, so at the end of September, they will select a grand prize winner from among all entered participants. This fortunate diver will win an all-exclusive liveaboard trip to the beautiful Amelie Safari in Egypt, sponsored by liveaboard.com. But that's not all. They're also going to reward their dedicated SSI professionals and training centers that verify dives during the challenge. So yeah, all you have to do is you have to check in on one of their pages, which is pretty easy, though I'll put a link down in the description below. Log your dives in the My SSI app and get verified by your instructor or an SSI training center, and each log dive increases your chances of winning incredible prizes, including dive computers, dive masks, and of course an unforgettable liveaboard trip. So that's a nice little competition that I spotted the other day, and yeah, entry starts on July the 1st, which, depending on when you're listening to this, it could be yesterday, or if you're listening to this when it's properly released, it could be tomorrow or even today. But anyway, July and September, or July, August, September, log your dives on the SSI app and get them verified by an SSI dive center. And yeah, you're going to sort of enter to win some prizes, which is pretty cool. Also, in the States, Congress imposed a brand new liability requirement on small dive, snorkel, and tour boat operators. As a direct result, dive centers, day boat operators, and dive training organizations and dive travel providers are having to pay dramatically higher fees for mandatory insurance coverage. Understandably, in order to stay in business, these costs are being passed to dive customers. So, of course, you're paying more to go scuba diving. So the Dive Boat Act proposes a solution that would help ensure vessels that are operating safely are not burdened with unnecessary insurance hikes, thus maintaining reasonable, affordable prices on dive travel. So if Congress hears from you, if you're listening in the United States, they'll be much more likely to get the Dive Boat Act passed. There's going to be a link down in the description. This is coming from dema.org, and yeah, it's basically a way to support the Dive Boat Act and encourage your representatives to do the same. Yeah, click down on the link in the description below, and yeah, help everyone, especially in the United States, to save some money on their dive trips. I've also noticed that Dan, the Divers Alert Network, have announced pre-sales for some Dan branded watches, diving watches. There's one, two, three, four, there's 5 different models. Some of them are quite similar to Rolex diving watches by looking at the hands, and others. So one's called the Navy SEAL Titan Carbon with a quite bright blue face or a carbon black face, and then they do the Solid Diver 200 ATM wristwatch, and then the GMT bezel with BKK green, the sort of the Pepsi black and green bezel on the top, which yeah is quite reminiscent of a a Rolex, but yeah, they're all branded as Dan. They're just pre-sales at the moment, but if you're interested, then yeah, head over. Again, I'll put a link down in the description below. This week, I've mainly been working on the Galapagos diving video with Explorer Ventures and getting that all edited. That'll go live on Saturday. If you're listening to this on Friday, then yeah, wait until Saturday. If you're listening to this on Sunday on the YouTube channel, then it's already live, so you should be able to go watch it. It's highlighting their two vessels out there, Tiburon and Humboldt, who are both state of the art. Tiburon was first what's the word? Released into the waters. I can't think of the word, but yeah, it's brand new from 2020. And Humboldt is just recently been refurbished, so that's all shiny and new on the inside and the outside. But yeah, to go scuba diving in Galapagos, just very very once in a lifetime. Lots of endemic species. You of course get a lot of shots of the marine iguanas swimming around, but all sorts of hammerhead sharks and whale sharks, the mola mola. There are some really weird and wonderful fish out there. A fair amount of current. That seems to be the one thing that most people say is to be prepared for current as well as temperature changes. It's not always the warmest, despite the Galapagos Islands. I think they literally straddle the equator. It's still pretty cold just because it sits at the confluence of like three water currents. One of them, Humboldt, coming up from South America, well, actually from the Antarctic all the way up South America to the Galapagos Islands. It brings lots of nutrients and stuff, which is why we get all the big exotic species. However, it does bring a drop in water temperature. So yeah, it's like 5 mil territory, 7 mil for most times of the year, depending on how hardy you are to water temperatures. But yeah, some of the pictures and videos that you see out of Galapagos are just incredible. And if you are planning on going, then yeah, check out exploreradventures.com. Otherwise, trying to catch up with Ask Mark. You wonderful divers out there do ask a lot of questions, and yeah, it takes a while to film them all. So it's a good while between when you ask the question and I actually get to film a video. I'm hopefully trying to increase the numbers that I do each week. At the moment, it's only 2 Ask Mark questions that I answer a week. I'm hoping to up that to 3 to try and catch up with your questions. It just takes a bit more effort for me to really just film and edit them, because I try and put a bit more effort into editing them instead of just me just talking at you at the camera. I try and do overlays and as many like show and don't tell as much, or show instead of tell, as much as possible, so that's it is not just me talking, it's me showing you what's going on, and actually sort of filming that in camera just takes a little extra time, but I'll do my best. I'll see if I can catch up. But yeah, AquaLung, man, it's one of those things. If you're not in the industry, you might not be too aware of it, unless you own like Apeks or AquaLung regulators and you're trying to get hold of a spare part. It's been pretty tough for the past couple of years. Sorry. Certain parts have been really hard to get hold of, especially like popular service kits, and everyone's been like, oh, well, just like supply chain issues. It's after the pandemic, it's been really hard to get hold of certain things, and that kind of makes sense. But when the other brands, like your Scubapros, are doing perfectly well, you're like, well, how come they can do it but AquaLung can't? And there have been rumors and things behind the scenes, everything all coming together does make sense. And yeah, the other day we got this press release that basically said that they're being bought out by Bearings or Barings. I'm not entirely sure. So yeah, the future is interesting. We'll see what happens to AquaLung over the next few months and years, and who knows. But yeah, at the moment, your Scuba Pros are a safe bet, and yeah, it is a good thing that they're sponsoring this podcast because I can wholeheartedly recommend Scuba Pro. So yeah, time will tell. I'll try and report as I sort of hear any other like secret industry news. Otherwise, that's it for the podcast. Yeah, if there are any corrections to what I've said about like the financial industry things, because yeah, I'm in no way an expert in these kind of matters. I read things and you're like, oh, okay, that's interesting, and then they go into the real like, oh, this is how they turn a profit and do all this kind of stuff and all these different acronyms, and I don't really know. I'm a scuba diver. But it's quite interesting to see what goes on. Pop that down in the comments below. Any links to any like news articles and things that you've read about it, yeah, by all means pop them down in the comment section. But yeah, I do recommend that you look at that medium.com Scubanomics article because it is quite interesting, and it's a little dry from someone who isn't in the economic financial area, but once you get your head around it, it is actually quite interesting to learn about how these brands have been doing. And yeah, anyway, that's all. I'm not going to waste any more time because I've been droning on about it for a while. But yeah, remember to head over to our website, scubadivermag.com. Like, share, subscribe wherever you're like listening to this. Remember to head over to YouTube if you haven't already. Subscribe over there if you're not. I think we're just about to hit 25,000, which is incredible. Thank you, everybody. And yeah, thank you for listening. And of course, safe diving. The Scuba Diver Magazine podcast is sponsored by Scubapro. For more information, head over to scubapro.johnsonoutdoors.com and find out more about their amazing scuba diving range.